Let's start with Joe Biden's prostate cancer. I'll just get into it. I read the New York Times article this morning, and it sounds like it's actually fairly advanced. It's stage four, but and it's metastasized and it's gotten to his bones. I guess what spurred the doctor's appointment, he made a doctor's appointment. I guess he was having some trouble when urinating.
Right.
But I did some like WebMD stuff. I was like, okay, how could it get to this point? I guess prostate cancer, it doesn't show a ton of symptoms. It doesn't necessarily show a ton of symptoms. It might just be, you're urinating a lot more, which, if you're an old man, that almost seems like
Normal.
par for the course.
Right.
So, I bet it was one of those things that, everybody just kind of thought he was being a little frail, but nobody knew how bad it really was. But I was also reading, like, how old is he? He's like, what, 81
Something like
or
that.
something?
Yeah.
Uh, Based on what the New York Times said, with past cases that they had some doctor write some things, and they said, you can expect another like 5 to 10 years of life if you undergo treatment and do all the things. Like you have to like completely block out the testosterone, which is like feeding the cancer. So, I mean, I'm sure Joe Biden was not having sex anyways, so they're just going to basically chemically castrate him. And I think he should be kicking it with, I'm sure his medical attention will be far better than the average person's.
Right.
So I bet we could see another decade in him, even with this. It's not implausible. It's going to be rough, but it's not going to be the worst possible. It's not like he's going to die within the year. He could very well live another decade.
Well, I
So,
mean, it is stage four, right? Like it's stage four, and like the type of cancer it is considered aggressive, right? So like they think it's gonna spread, right?
yeah, yeah, it's definitely bad where he is, but according to the New York Times was incredibly optimistic. So, I'm not sure. I mean, when I first read about it, I was like, okay, he's going to die soon. That's certainly unfortunate.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the New York Times was really optimistic. And uh, I mean, I don't know I mean, that's really all my knowledge about it. I guess opinion wise, I don't know. Do you think this, like, if it's stage four, then he certainly had it while he was president. Like it was certainly present. How much do you think? A lot of people are pretty conspiratorial. They're like, "Oh, the Biden cover up. They were hiding his, declining mental faculties. They were, keeping it from the public. They were, the man is on death's door and they're keeping it from the public." I mean, I think they were definitely hiding the decline of his mental faculties, but
Definitely.
I don't think anybody knew about this. I surely nobody. I mean, I don't think anybody knew about this. Otherwise, he would have already been treated. So it sounds like they just found out. But
Yeah, I mean, listen, dude, it's hard for me to believe that they had no idea about any of this because here's the thing. Like the amount of screenings and doctor's visits you have to go through as president, like at least in some of the stuff that I read. I mean, I don't know what you know about the NFL Combine, but they do everything but stick a barometer up the athlete's ass. And they were making it sound like they make it sound like that's nothing compared to what the president at the age of 78 or whatever he was is going to go through. Like it is a high bar for me to imagine that this was just completely caught off guard. Oh my God, no way. Nah,
Well,
BS, man. I call BS. But I have to concede there is no evidence, really. I mean, and we'll get into later about how you're gonna like try and prove this conspiracy theory that people like myself have, but I mean, they certainly lied about his mental capabilities, right? Like you wouldn't argue that, right?
certainly. And even I think it was like last week, some story broke that George Clooney, who I guess is a friend of him and the Obamas, I guess he visited him at one point. I believe it was kind of, in that period of time where around the debate, I think a little preceding the debate,
Mm-hmm.
but Biden didn't recognize him, you know, and and apparently they're tight. Apparently they were close friends, and George Clooney. I mean, you know, I would be able to spot him. I would be able
Fairly
to.
fairly recognizable guy. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, very distinctive face. I mean, A-lister. So I mean, I would certainly know who that is. I think I think his mental state is and was pretty dire. It would have certainly been kind of scary to imagine him being president. I'm sure it wouldn't be long before his VP would take over.
Oh yeah, 100%. Plus, I mean, you got to think. You know what really disgusts me about that whole thing is, like, I don't think that they quite realized how bad it was because if they knew how bad it was, there's a 0% chance they would have ever let him go on stage with Donald Trump. But thank God that they did because clearly, because I'm definitely was one of those guys that was like, no, guys, he's just an old man. He's always had gaffes. Like everyone relax. There's nothing. And then like I saw the debate and I was like, holy crap, we're cooked. Like nobody's voting for this. Like this guy doesn't know where he is, and he's on enough drugs to like kill a pack mule and he still can't get a sentence out. Like this is not good. Um,
Yeah,
which
well, sorry. I was just gonna say I was leaning towards at the time. I was fairly certain that he was pretty addled, but yeah, the debate performance especially, it kind of cemented the idea for me that he was in dire straits because it was pretty bad.
yeah, 100%. And it doesn't shock me at all that they were like, yeah, we literally can't run you. Like this is not gonna happen. And I was on that team. As soon as that debate happened, I was like, he can't run. He's not mentally capable. Nope.
Oh, yep. Oh,
Nope.
yeah. I mean, I remember even Van Jones. Like, I saw some like post interview like roundtable or whatever. I don't know. It was him and a bunch of other panelists, and even he was like, yeah, he's got to go.
Yeah,
He's got
he's
to step for
yeah,
the
it doesn't get much more like mainstream Democratic establishment like pundit than Van Jones, right? So,
Oh yeah. Well,
gosh, it's so crazy. Go ahead. Sorry.
oh sorry. It's just I guess now I mean it's almost feels like low hanging fruit, but I do feel like it could spur like a longer conversation. So uh I did notice though that when he was diagnosed that the right they seem to have been pretty supportive and giving him well wishes. Now he's no longer a threat to them, so if I'm being cynical, maybe that's part of it. But let me ask you this. What do you think the reaction would be by the left if Trump was diagnosed with cancer? I'm thinking that, the more mainstream ones would be giving him well wishes, but I'd say like Twitter, especially like the
The
base.
online left would be ecstatic
Oh, yeah,
in
they'd
the
be
in the
celebrating.
most unbelievably gross way possible. I mean, just look at what happened after the Butler, Pennsylvania attempt, right? And I won't say the other the other word, YouTube talk.
Oh yeah.
But after
Yeah.
after that attempt, I mean, look no further than Destiny. I mean, I'll play the clip.
So far over dealing with the Trumples, who are the worst I think that America has to offer, trying to tone police or trying to beg for sympathy. Nah, fuck it. Fuck it. Fuck the dude, the firefighter guy. Fuck Trump. Fuck the people that support him. I just want you to know, okay? Just in case you're confused or it seems like you don't, whatever. If one of you were in the crowd and you're a conservative fan of mine and you end up, getting blown away or whatever the fuck, I'm making fun of you the next day on Twitter. I am 100%. And if you tweet any shit about Putin or whatever, I'm going to throw it up.
He basically says, hey, the worst thing that could have happened is the gun go off and miss. And that's unbelievably gross. You know what I mean? Like that cannot be a common and he's not that far out there for the online left. I would consider him one of the moderate online lefties. Like what do you think Hassan would say or Kyle Kalinske would say if Trump got diagnosed with cancer? Right? They'd be jumping up and down.
Oh yeah, yeah, certainly those two. Uh, yeah, it was surprising when Destiny said that. Because, like you said, he does strike me as more moderate, at least compared to like Hassan or something. But yeah, I don't know. Do you think that was like rage baiting? Because that's just so obviously just something that you should not say. But I mean,
Well,
he
he
did it
has
anyway.
he has actual Trump derangement syndrome, right? And he also gives zero Fs. So like I have no doubt that that might have been like 100% genuine.
Oh
Because
wow.
he did not back down from it, and he was only given 1,000 freaking chances to. I mean, he goes on Piers Morgan, and I'll play that clip too.
No, do you condemn the shooter shooting Donald Trump?
No,
Wow.
not here, not on this program, not in front of these people.
Wow. You
Absolutely
do not condemn a
Not in
deranged
front of these
shooter
people.
shooting
You are
Donald
truly
Trump.
just a child. This is not.
Actually,
this is
it's
not a
not. No,
competition
you know
here.
what,
We're
Charlie?
just trying to be decent human
You know what,
beings.
Charlie? It's not actually the behaviour of a child. It's the behaviour of somebody who's completely lost his moral compass and any
You're right.
sense of
You're right.
decency.
You're right.
As I
A
sit-
child
as I
wouldn't
sit
even
And I'm
act
going to go
like
to
this
Dave
because
Rubin.
they
Dave,
haven't
I
had
want.
evil instilled
Let me
in
let
them
Dave
to that
Rubin.
point.
Dave Rubin, respond to what you've just heard from Destiny.
I mean, it's actually one of the most disgusting things that I've ever heard in my life. My entire staff in my studio right now all gasp at that.
He basically says, "No, I'm not apologizing for that. Not in front of these conservatives." Because his argument is basically like, "Look, the conservatives are way worse, right, about everything." And it's like, okay, well, yeah, way to stick up and be better. Way to rise above that.
Yeah.
What a total degenerate sometimes. And listen, I'm a Destiny content like viewer, so like I listen to a lot of what he puts out there. But I mean that's just gross and despicable. Like that type of behavior should be beyond the left, but it's super not. It's almost like a part of who the online left is. And it's disgusting.
Yeah, you're definitely right. And there's certainly a nastiness present in the left that I don't think quite exists on the right, but it's kind of an odd thing because at least ostensibly, like the left politics are like, being kind to all, and then the right politics ostensibly are more likely to venture into like FU territory, like, oh, your child wants school lunches. Well, that's not my problem. They're
Right.
more likely to venture that far. But in terms of like, instances like where, Joe Biden is diagnosed with prostate cancer, they're far less nasty in their interpersonal relations. I also the way in which right wingers protest, there's like a certain vulgarity and nastiness that I would attribute to left wing protests that I don't think are quite as pronounced in right wing protests. Albeit there are some instances,
Yeah,
but
not to play whataboutism, but like I mean there is like Charlottesville in January 6th, right? I mean
Charlottesville, oh yeah,
you
they
can't tell me that that's not like just absolutely disgusting, right?
I found the BLM riots of 2020 to be far worse, and because the thing about Charlottesville is it was centered around protecting that statue of General Lee, and our viewers might have a certain view of that. Maybe disagree. Okay, but
Yeah,
it had a well.
that's
Okay, but
that's
they
why they
wanted.
had to carry the tiki torches, Darren.
Well,
They were
they were
trying to
they were
protect
making they
General
were
Lee.
making
They
they
were trying. Don't make me. I'm playing the clip.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us! Blood and soil! Blood and soil! Blood and soil!
All
What say
right.
ye to that, Darren? Huh?
Okay,
What say
play
ye
the
to that?
clip. They were making a bold statement. It was meant to draw media attention, and they certainly did that. Ultimately, there were clashes with counter protesters, and some people did die, but the it's only because the counter protesters swarmed a guy in his Dodge Challenger or so, I don't know. He had this like silver Dodge Challenger, and he like he ran over some people and he killed one. But I mean, to be fair, if I were in a situation like that, maybe I freak out and drive through. Who knows? In fact, Oklahoma has passed legislation making it legal to do so. So, and in our state, that's totally legal.
Yeah, not like that woke state, Virginia. You know what I mean? Or
It's a blue.
wherever,
It's a blue state. It's a blue
wherever it
state.
was Virginia, right?
Charlottesville is in Virginia. Yeah.
Okay, I was just making sure. Okay, anyway. Yeah,
No, yeah,
yeah,
you're right. You're right.
yeah,
But yeah, Virginia. That's a blue state. That's a blue state, and
yeah. Very
it,
woke. Yeah.
and no businesses. No like normal, everyday civilians' livelihoods were, torched. The local Arby's wasn't put to the fire. Just bunch of tiki torches from Home Depot were. So I think that's like the vulgarity and
What a way to
nastiness.
phrase it. I'm playing the clip again. You're telling.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us! Blood and soil! Blood and soil! Blood and soil!
You're telling me that this is just. Oh, they did. They were just lighting tiki torches. They're just they're just doing a thing.
Well, yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's not. I mean, there's a big difference between lighting a tiki torch and lighting an Arby's on fire, or looting a Foot Locker or something. I don't know. I mean,
Foot Locker shouldn't have been anti-BLM. What do you want me to say? Like,
oh my,
those tiki torches wanted to be associated with like college frats and like white trash at a lake, and instead now they're associated with white supremacists. Thanks, Darren. Thanks.
well, I stand by my. I think the vulgarity factor of the left, and the willingness to do like normal people harm when they didn't do anything. I think that's really only present in the left. Uh, in fact, I mean, back in 2016, that was the era of, go punch a Nazi or something. That was like what all the left wingers were saying. And some of them actually did it. If you recall that famous clip where somebody, Richard Spencer.
They kind of hate me, actually.
Following the KKK, neo-Nazi.
Those people don't like me.
Are you
to be
like
honest.
the hipster version of the neo-Nazi movement?
It's Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
Doing a street interview or something. Somebody was talking to him, and somebody just comes behind him and just sucker punches him. I mean, no right winger would do that. I mean, that's no, I mean, if they
No
fought,
right winger, you're out of your mind.
Oh no, I can't think. Name one. I can't.
You're
think
out
of
of your mind. Don't get me on the cuff here. That's not exactly fair. But you're gonna tell me you're gonna tell me I searched the internet. I'm not gonna find one. I'm not gonna find one issue of like right wing like vigilante violence.
Not in the form of a sucker punch. I will say. Okay,
give me a
concede.
break.
Let me give
give me a
Let me
break.
give
Go
a
ahead.
concession because I am nothing but fair. I am nothing but fair. I would count. Unfortunately, I would count Some of the okay, you know that like shooting, I think it was in like Buffalo, New York, of like that grocery store where that guy just went in and killed like 12 black people or something,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
totally race based. That was right wing. So there is that. Yeah, that kind of negates the other point I was making, but it's bad when you contradict.
Well, let me just shift back just a little bit here because I do want to get your take on this. So like it seems like for some reason the left there's just something repulsive about the online left, right?
Yes,
It
yes.
so let me just kind of steel man like for most people the left view the right as like racist, misogynistic bigots, and people who will openly say like racist, sexist things. Moderates will half the time go with them, right? Even though they're portrayed as racist, because it's like somehow like the portrayed racism and sexism does not seem to be as repulsive as like just the way the left seems to act. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
very. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm phrasing it very well, but
Oh no,
there's
I totally get it. Yeah.
despite the uh I don't know what you'd call it, the stereotype of like racism and sexism and all of that like exclusive language, like somehow like moderate people will be like, yeah, I still prefer that to what you guys are selling. And that to me is just unbelievable. Like, what are these leftists doing that's so crazy? And then I look at them and I'm like, oh, well, they're just pure degenerates sometimes.
Oh yeah. I mean, I hate to, just totally punch down, but I mean, if you've ever seen some of these like mugshots of like they'll do like the mugshot compilations of these Antifa people that have been captured, it really is like the dregs of society. I mean, they oh my gosh, they're just hideous people. But so I think maybe some outward hideousness leads to like some inner hideousness. Maybe they just and that in Twitter is where they go to express their rage. But
Now, I do have a quick question to just like kind of back all the way up to like Biden, kind of what we were talking about.
yeah, yeah.
There's been a bit of a push. So Matt Walsh is calling for like an open investigation. He's the one that's like on the and whether or not he's genuine, I have no no position on. Let's assume that he is though, right?
Hmm.
Do you think that there would be right wing support to because they have Congress, right? So they could start an investigation or wonder whatever committee they wanted to. But do you think that there would be support for them to bring in like Jill Biden, the White House doctors, maybe even Joe Biden himself, and like put hands on Bibles and testify, like, hey, did you figure this out at this time? How long have you known? Who knew? When? Like, they basically want to uncover what they consider like a cover up. What is your?
Hmm.
Do you think that there would be broad support among the right, or do you think that because honestly, like if they want to do that, Joe Biden is no longer an asset to the Democrats. Like the Democrats are just going to let him roast in the fire.
Yeah, I mean, my view is that it's a total waste. That would be a total waste of time. But I think certain segments of the base, probably not all. Even I would say some of the more diehards would probably eat it up.
Give us good content, I'll tell you that much.
Oh yeah, certainly. I think the Freedom Caucus, I guess. So the MTGs, the Lauren Boeberts, kind of like people kind of like that. I'm sure there would be some energy there. Maybe that's something they would like to do with their free time instead of something like productive. But I almost think people feel I don't think there's that much animosity for Joe Biden for people to even want to do it. Actually, I think people are fine just to let bygones be bygones. He's he's certainly not the most offensive person on the left by any stretch of the imagination. So I think just, yeah, persecuting some old man who doesn't even know where he is. I don't think there's as much of an appetite for it today as there might have been.
Well, and
Out.
as crazy as it might sound, I don't think Trump would support it either. I think there's this weird bromance that he has with with Joe Biden, and I think he'd rather spend his political capital somewhere else. I mean, that's a tough sell. I think that anything positive, the idea that anything positive would come from that, I think is a little silly, But, some people, they want to see blood. They think that they were lied to. They think there was this mass cover up, and I don't know that it was really that big, but I understand why they think that. But I severely doubt it. Now, I will say this, and I want to get your take on this as well. There's no way Jill Biden didn't know, right? Like about his mental decline, specifically his mental decline.
Oh, she certainly knew, and if I recall correctly, she was one of the people pushing for him to stay in.
Stay in.
Oh yeah, I probably the most. I mean, out of anyone, and I'm sure she probably had the most influence. Being his wife. Uh, I can't imagine many people having more of a say than her. So, uh,
Yeah, and I don't know, like I just think that it's absolutely disgusting that she like forced her husband to undergo like the most stressful job on the planet. Just so what? Just so she could run around and be the first lady? Like give me a break. Like that's
yeah,
really that says so much about her as a person. And look, I don't know her. Maybe she's great. Maybe she's a good mom, but I tell you what, I don't know that she can't be that good of a husband to let him kill himself like that. I mean, that's just gross.
yeah, I tend to agree because she obviously knew if she spent every day with him or roughly every day, she had to have known.
Right.
And and honestly, I don't understand what I mean, I guess, plainly, the motive was, she wants the power. So her husband, being the most powerful man in the world, that, confers a great deal of status upon her.
Right.
Uh, so, I mean, there is that, which is kind of obvious, but I mean, I would think that surely any more reasonable person would probably see the state of things and be like, okay, for the good of my country, I'll put my own personal feelings, uh, in the past, and I'll do what's right. Maybe if I'm being a little more conspiracy minded, maybe she was hoping for like a Hunter Biden pardon, which did happen. I mean, one of his last
Right.
acts as president, he pardoned Hunter. So maybe that's why she was wanting to keep him in. But honestly, he could have done that at pretty much any time. He could have pardoned Hunter and then left. So I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it might have just been a status thing. Honestly,
Yeah.
I think
Which
power
which
can
makes
really
it even which makes it even more gross.
definitely.
So just to I guess we were talking about relations with Israel and Netanyahu, and me and Darren were as skeptical would be putting it lightly, right? Like we
Yeah.
did not buy the idea that he was actually in a rough situation with BB, or he wasn't returning his calls or anything like that. And if that our speculations seem to be true, because he basically goes on Brett Baer's show, and Brett Baer asks him straight up. He's like, "Hey, there's a lot of reports that you guys there's trouble in paradise. Like, what's the deal?" And Trump's like, "No, yeah, no, yeah, everything's fine." And then like apparently that wasn't enough, Darren. He also had to be like, and remember, October 7th was really bad. I mean, they're fighting literal demons basically. And I'm like, oh god, okay. It wasn't enough to say no, we're friends. He had to do it. But
Oh yeah,
what?
he always does that over the top thing where, and normally people don't like clip it as much on, especially on the more right wing side of Twitter, which is where I see a lot of stuff. But if you ever watch like the full thing and get a little more context around the clips, he always adds like some like superlatives, like, oh yeah, these Hamas guys, they're the absolute worst, and then he'll throw some digs at Iran. And so anytime you might be getting like a glimmer of hope by some like edited clip that makes him like look like he might possibly do something like good, if you watch the full like video, like 9 times out of 10 it's so bad, like uh just awful. And you know, in fact, I mean, the war, the offensive against Gaza is, totally restarted. It's back in full force, and I mean, it's basically been like hundreds every day that are dying. At least is what those are the numbers I'm getting. So
Yeah, and the media seems to be less focused on it now than they were towards like the end of the Biden administration, where basically it was there every day, right? But
hmm
um,
yeah, I wonder.
it's gonna take I think another major offensive by the Israelis, which they've basically already started, but they're not like I don't know what the word is. They're not annexing Gaza yet, so maybe that's why they're not as much news stories on it, other than like just the death tolls. That's the only thing I can ever see.
They're going to probably let. I saw something today that uh oh, I forget his name. Was it Smotrich maybe? He'd had some speech, or maybe it was Ben Gvir. I don't know. I need to pay more attention to the names. He had some speech, and he was like, "We're going to let the minimum aid into Gaza to protect us from international crime, like international rulings, like in The Hague, and
Right.
all that." So I think maybe we might see some movement in that regard. Like maybe we'll see some more like U.S. aid getting in. But I think this thing. I mean, I'm pretty pessimistic. I think BB's gonna basically get his way. Unfortunately, I mean, you know. There was hope, in 2024 that maybe Trump would at least, even if he's not like some, great human rights defender, that maybe he would just be man enough to like not take, BB's insults and, implicit insults, I should say, against him, and just, lay down the law. But I mean, Trump seems just as powerless as Biden in this regard. So, I mean, I mean,
Which is really weird because you'd have thought being such a wild card that he was that maybe we're gonna get something in the direction of like yes, this is good, this is a good direction to be pushing, but there's no sign of that right now.
oh yeah, and honestly, okay, this is something that I've been thinking about. It's like no matter who the president is, and with Trump, and you can maybe expect progress on this less, but let's go back all the way to Obama, or even yeah, let's start with Obama. But I'm pretty sure when he was running back in like 2008, that he was like his messaging, if I remember correctly, was pretty pro-Palestine. He made it clear that he wanted to see a resolution to that conflict, and that totally tracks with his life story. He's like some Chicagoan community organizer, like enlightened liberal, sensitive liberal type of guy. So you would totally expect that he'd be well read on the issue and educated. But even he seemed basically powerless to do anything substantive on the issue. And he did make that Iran deal, but as far as the Palestinians were concerned, he really didn't do anything all that impressive. So I just wonder, like, maybe there are mechanisms or like forces like in the background that are just constantly at play and are like constantly on the necks of like our presidents that we don't know about, but maybe the Israelis just have something on these presidents. Like, I mean, that would almost be like it would almost be charitable to have that read on the matter, because it would mean that our presidents aren't totally spineless and totally like morally bankrupt.
No, just cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.
Careful now. All right, listen. Let's take Occam's razor here. All right, what's more likely, Darren? All right, the fact that Obama like weighed like the pros and cons, like right after he won. You got to remember, like he won like 58, 59 Senate seats, right? So like he's trying to pass Obamacare and a million other legislative victories, right? Does he really want to muddy the waters by trying to like take on the the APAC lobby when at the time they were extremely popular, just the state of Israel, right?
That
And
is a good point. That
right,
is a good point, because he has his own agenda, and he might care for the Palestinians to a degree, but they're certainly not what he puts first, or as JD Vance would say, they're not high on the Ordo Amoris. So
right. Well, and you got to think too, like just if we were to take it like that, there's a possibility that the Mossad had something on Obama. You don't think that they would have directly fed that to the Republicans during like either the midterms or the 2012 election? Like 100% they would have rather had a Mitt Romney or a John McCain, right? So like
oh yeah, oh
if
yeah.
they had what you're claiming they had, it would be out. It trusts me. There's the Republicans would have sold the entire future of the country if it meant taking down Obama in 2012. But so
That's a good point, because his relationship with Israel, even though they basically got everything they wanted,
they got
it
everything
was
except the
very
Iran
strained.
deal. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah,
it
yeah.
makes no sense why they weren't big fans.
Oh yeah. And do you, I mean, I think the hysterics that comes from Israel, I maybe that's part of their strategy, but maybe behind the hysterics they knew that Obama was basically willing to play ball with them. Maybe that's why they didn't release anything, if I'm going on the conspiracy angle. I don't know. But also, I mean, what could there be really on Obama? I mean, for example, like that crackhead that Tucker Carlson had on that
Oh,
claimed
good
he
lord.
sucked Obama's penis.
Right.
Obviously that guy is just some lunatic, and Tucker Carlson looks like an insane person for even having him on. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not maybe it's not like a personal blackmail, because you know Obama, maybe Joe Biden surely has a pretty clean record. I think it's more of like nuclear blackmail. I think it's more like, hey, United States government, if you don't support us materially with weapons and you know money, whatever. Maybe we nuke Iran. Maybe we nuke Iran's nuclear facilities, and then this displaces every country on the Persian Gulf. So Bahrain, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar.
Iraq, right?
Oh yeah, really just about everyone. So
Yep.
maybe that's like the ace up their sleeve. Like maybe they're saying, you know, you don't do this, then Samson option. We just start throwing nukes, and then it's everybody's problem, and then you'll wish you had supported us.
Well, that's actually, and I'm not going to be able to find the clip because I don't have it saved, but that's actually one of the arguments that Ben Shapiro made on his show.
Oh, the real risk for Israel in not finishing off Hamas right now is that this is taken as a sign of weakness, as it certainly would be, by Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a far more dangerous terrorist group than Hamas. Hamas is a dangerous terrorist group. They just proved it by killing 1,300 Jews. Hezbollah currently has over 100,000 highly sophisticated rockets aimed directly at the north of Israel. Estimates suggest that were Hezbollah to fire all of those rockets, we wouldn't be talking about 1,300 dead Jews. You would be talking about somewhere between 20 and 30,000 dead Jews, day one. If Hezbollah gets in, Israel will have no choice but to unleash the Air Force. If they unleash the Air Force, they're not going to be worried at that point about civilian casualties at all. They're simply going to have to eviscerate the entire south of Lebanon and topple the regime in Lebanon that supports Hezbollah. If that happens, Iran undoubtedly gets in, and so does Syria. If that happens, and Israel is now faced with a full war in the north, combined with a war in the south, because they will not have defeated Hamas, that's the predicate. If Israel is forced to the wall, the possibility of nuclear exchange is extremely high. That is why it is very important that the United States provide the material aid to Israel.
Was that, hey, listen, if the United States withdraws their support, Israel will be backed into a corner because they can't make the munitions at the level that they're currently using. Then they have to import it from us, even though they have a huge weapons industry over there, just out of necessity of what they're doing. But they don't have enough to keep up with what they're doing. They have to import it from us for free, of course. And he's like, listen, if Israel was all by itself, because like really no one in the Western world is really going to take on that. No, like France, Germany, the UK, none of them are. They're not getting involved because they don't want their reputational hit. But he basically says like, yeah, we'd have to, potentially nuke Iran or nuke like Syria, or he goes on and he lists a couple of, even though on paper, right, Israel has nuclear ambiguity, so like we don't know for certain that they have a nuke, but they have a nuke, at least a couple. So
oh yeah, they have quite a few, I'd wager. But yeah, maybe the more I think about it, like, and this is a totally charitable read, because the other read is that our government is just cowardly, but and unwilling to do what's necessary. But the other charitable read, which we're kind of fleshing out here, is like maybe because we are just we don't want nuclear proliferation. That's part of the reason Obama did the Iran deal. We don't want every country getting nukes because what happens when some rogue state just starts killing people. I mean, that was part of the reason why North Korea was such a hot topic in 2016. So I think maybe that's a really big, like, under discussed part of it, is just that there's like this nuclear blackmail hanging over the heads of our presidents, and maybe they're just afraid of the human suffering that could occur if they don't give Israel what they want, which, I mean, that it's totally possible that that's the calculation they're making.
Well, I honestly don't even know if it's as much that. I mean, again, like, you got to talk. I mean, the APAC lobby is one of the most bipartisan lobbies ever, but they do generally support the Republicans a little bit more, if you're trying to add like plus and minuses. But the thing is if you were to come out and try and like tell Netanyahu, like, hey, like, get your crap together. We're doing a nuclear deal with Iran, so that way, you and them don't go to war, which of course, Netanyahu wants. He would just start funding the opposition. So, like, if Trump right now came out and said that, what do you think AIPAC would do? Well, they'd start funding either Democrats more, or they'd start funding a new era of Republicans where they, like, tell Trump he can't use the military in the Middle East without Congress,
Oh yeah, I think yeah, maybe they would start funding like more John Fetterman, Richie Torres types, but I think basically the strategy going forward, they're going to have to really like shore up their base in the Republican Party because there's just they've lost the Democratic youth. And besides a few elected representatives and some boomers, I don't think the Israeli lobby is going to be able to hold on long on the Democrats. So I think they basically have no choice but to shift right. And if they were smart, they would do so as quick as they can. But we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, it should be interesting. I did see a poll the other day on Breaking Points that pretty much for every demographic except for boomers, them boomers love them some Israel, man. They love them some Israel.
They do. Yeah, they're still sold on the myth, the
right. I mean, they underwent 40 something years of propaganda, and I don't say that in like a negative way, but like I mean like literally like by the definition, like that's that's what they underwent.
Oh yeah, honestly, until the internet opened things up, I think basically every normie, unless you were some like like deranged leftist or something, you probably or some quote unquote anti-Semite, you probably weren't thinking about this issue. So
yeah,
they really had everyone until they totally squandered all the goodwill. So
yeah, and listen, and we're in an era where it's kind of the wild west of truth right now on the internet. You know what I mean? Like there's any person is an expert and every person is an expert according to the internet. If it wasn't for the internet, then and it's not just Israel. There's a million other issues. You know what I mean? Like flat Earth and random stuff, and obviously the Israel stuff is not nearly on that level. But when the elites control and the academics control the narrative and the history and all that, kind of unchecked, then there really is no way to like challenge their narrative as a whole, right? Like you said, you would just be a crackpot anti-Semite ranting and raving on the side of the street. That's what you would have been. But now in the internet era,
oh yeah,
you have access to all the information and you can construct things in such a way, and you can use deception, propaganda, coincidence. I mean, it's unbelievable. So you can challenge any narrative, no matter how true it is. But you can also challenge, actual BS, like what we're seeing with with Israel's genocide right now.
Oh yeah, just for that fact alone, I think the democratization of media is well worth it. I think it is overall a positive development. A lot of people like to they like to think about the democratization of media as like the proliferation of like Joe Rogan types and just total slop, nothing really valuable being said, talk to probably being the like prime example of just total slop proliferation. But I do think it in terms of being able to change people's minds and getting people to getting people to be intellectually curious. I think I love the era we're in. I'm glad it's not so monopolized.
I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the Wild West that we're in right now, but we're here, so there's nothing we can do about it.
There's certainly drawbacks, talk to us.
Right. I just
wish
think
that didn't exist, but
it's such a brain rot, and I feel real bad for the youth about it because it's like these people don't know any better, and so they'll watch a 20-minute YouTube video and suddenly they think they have as much expertise as the guy who has written their thesis on it. It's wild. It's like Dave Smith. Dave Smith will watch a 20-minute documentary about India, Pakistan, and then he'll basically tell you why we should be not funding this war, Darren. Like he's God. And I'd pick on Dave Smith, but there's a million like him. It's unbelievable. Anything else you'd like to mention, or are we good to move on here?
Well, let's move on. I actually, I think it's been said before in these podcasts that, we're Oklahomans and all that, and I gotta say I'm really impressed with the Thunder this season. They just beat the Denver Nuggets in the playoffs, and man, you know me, I'm not like a big sports guy, but I tune in whenever big events are happening, and wow, I'm just so impressed by our guys, and I think it's really really cool that they put that what is he, like a Slavic? He's not Serbian, is he? Where is he from? Jokic?
Yeah, he's from Serbia. Yep.
Oh, he is?
Yep.
Yeah, I think our guy has Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think he has a real chance of becoming MVP.
Yeah, well, he's definitely the favorite now that he's beaten Jokic. And listen, our dudes came to play, and I'll tell you what. So the commissioner of the NBA is a guy named Adam Silver, Darren. And if you saw a picture of him, you'd immediately recognize who he is, just because.
Oh yeah, he's like bald and scary.
Yeah, he's a weird looking guy. One of them dudes that they made in a lab when they clicked all the wrong buttons, like the scales were inverted or something,
Oh yeah.
And he has got to be just absolutely frustrated because generally speaking, the NBA wants big market teams in the NBA Finals. So they want the Lakers or the Celtics or, the Golden State, teams that have like a billion fans, right? So
yeah.
The Oklahoma City Thunder, we're what's considered a small market team. So in other words, really outside of Oklahoma, how popular are the Thunder? Not very. But you can find Lakers jerseys everywhere. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean you'll see them around in Oklahoma. Not too common, but you'll still see them.
Right. But right now, the way that the finals is shaping up, so you've got the Thunder and Minnesota, they're going to play. And then you've got the Knicks and the Pacers. So you've got three small market teams. And we're probably, if we're not the smallest, we're like the second smallest market team in the whole NBA. So like Adam Silver is freaking out because he's worried that nobody's gonna watch the finals because if we play the Pacers, it's gonna be one of the smallest viewing finals in the history of the NBA. And I don't care. I could care. I could not care. Now I hope we play the Knicks because I want to play the best teams.
Oh yeah. I hope we play them as well. That would be because the Knicks. That's a pretty large market.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah, I think they're probably the biggest one of the four left for sure. Because
they're as big as the three combined.
Really?
The Knicks are huge, man. And you wouldn't expect it. So if you look up like the most valuable franchises, it's probably the Knicks are number 1, 2, or 3, next to, of course, the Lakers and the Celtics.
Well, that actually is surprising. I would have thought I don't know. Maybe it's like some kind of Western conference bias. I always assumed like Lakers and then Golden State Warriors were just the main one, and then even like the Clippers and stuff. I'm thinking of all these West Coast type.
Well, so just a quick Google search. The Golden State Warriors are one, the Knicks are two, which they're the New York team, and then the Lakers are number three. So
Oh,
you're
okay.
not too far off with your thinking there. But yeah, the Knicks have always, and it's just because they're the New York team, and Madison Square Garden is literally in the middle of New York. So like people from literally all over just literally walk to the game. It's kind of astonishing, actually.
That is cool. I mean, to be able to walk to the stadium, that would be cool, and that's just such a huge venue. I'm sure that the crowds are insane over there. I really do hope we play the Knicks now, because could you imagine playing the OKC Thunder playing there and like everybody's watching? Oh wow, the
Yeah,
crowd size.
it's gonna be legendary. Now, don't get me wrong, we still have to get past the Timberwolves, which so we played them four times in the regular season. We won two and we lost two. So we're kind of 50-50 with them, and they're a good team, but this is almost tough to say. So the team we just beat, the Nuggets, they're probably the toughest team that we had to beat. So like if we can beat the Nuggets, we can definitely beat the Timberwolves, the Pacers, or the Knicks. You know what I mean? Like
That
there's
makes sense because the Nuggets, you know, Jokic being their star, and then he had some good assists. There's Westbrook,
yeah.
so he has some assistants. Oh wait, do I have that right?
Yeah, Westbrook's on
Okay,
that team. So is
okay. Making sure I didn't just switch names around.
no, you're good.
Uh, but yeah, so they were a good team. The Timberwolves, their only star is Anthony Edwards, right?
I mean, so they have so he's for sure the big one, 100%. They do have a guy named Rudy Gobert who is a center for them, and he is going to be kind of a nightmare to deal with because he's like a defensive mastermind. Like
Mhm.
the dude looks like Chet Holmgren, right, for the Thunder.
Oh yeah, super tall, lanky.
He's like the maxed out version of him. So now Chet may still be better now, but like not a defense. Rudy Gobert has just accomplished too much to say that at this point. But they're the same player basically. Like they're there to block shots, play defense, and maybe hit the occasional jump shot.
Well, yeah, there are some worrisome players on their team. They do have that guy. There's also what is the other guy? Randall, the Randall one.
Oh, Julius Randle, yes, he's also good, but I'm not as worried about him to be honest with you.
Yeah, I saw the Wolves playing recently. They didn't seem. I'm certainly not as worried about them as I was just facing the Nuggets. To me, that Anthony Edwards guy, which seems to be the guy that seems to rack up the most points for them, he doesn't seem to do quite as much as like Shai Alexander. So I think, yeah, I'm pretty optimistic. And another thing, this is like more, I don't know as much about the game, honestly, but I have been seeing some of the gossip, and this Anthony Edwards guy seems like a total thug, like terrible person. I hope we wipe the floor with him. I
No,
mean,
no, 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 no. He's a fine guy. He's not who you're thinking of. You must be thinking of John Morant. He's
uh,
a guy we beat in the first round. Anthony
well,
Edwards is a good guy.
Well,
He's
John Morant is like a wannabe, like
yeah, he's fake.
gangster
Yeah,
thug.
100%.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, he's from Memphis, the Grizzlies, right?
Right. Who we
Yeah,
beat in the first round? Yeah.
yeah. But I definitely know who that is. Yeah, I have no love for him, but in fact, I think there's probably more admirable qualities in Anthony Edwards than John Morant. But Anthony Edwards, okay, maybe this is all like gossip, and maybe this is why I shouldn't engage in gossip. But isn't he the one that he just paid? He wanted this chick to get an abortion or something, and she wouldn't, and so he just paid like a ton of child support up front just so he wouldn't ever have to deal with this kid.
I'm not gonna lie to you. That is super common in the NBA, more than we'd like to admit. But I think you're thinking of Zion Williamson. Because Zion Williamson impregnated a porn star named Mariah Mills, and he tried to get it aborted, and she wouldn't do it, so he just paid her a bunch of money. Um, that could be
Well,
what you're thinking of.
Well, I think I'm thinking of Anthony Edwards because I think I was aware of the whole Zion thing when that was happening
Well,
because
listen, you might be referencing a true story. I just when I'm looking up basketball stories, this is not what I'm looking up. So and now listen, I'm a ball watcher. So I've watched every single playoff basketball game in the Western Conference, and then probably most every single one in the Eastern Conference. There may be like a late game that I missed, but I've seen every single Western Conference game. But when I'm on Twitter or on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, I'm not really looking up the gossip about who they impregnated. And now listen, maybe you're right, but I don't know.
see that's funny though because this is where our interests diverge. I think because I do enjoy watching the ball games, especially. I like watching OKC. The other teams I could care less about. And I'll definitely be glued to the TV tomorrow uh, when we face off against the Timberwolves. But I I've been aware of anytime there's been NBA drama, it'll be all over Twitter. I just eat that stuff up. Like John Morant, which you mentioned earlier, flashing his guns and just being a hooligan. I was pretty aware of all that, and I thought it was really interesting. I remember devoting quite a, I at least, it caught my attention enough. I watched some YouTube videos about it, I think. So maybe that's a more feminine quality of mine. I don't really care about the sport as much as I do the gossip. See, we need to have more colorful characters in the NBA so that they can do just outrageous stuff and like Kyrie Irving and the flat earthian. He
Oh, good
participated in
Lord.
some flat earth conspiracies. I thought he was kind of brave for doing so, honestly. But
Yeah, no, and the NBA's definitely got some characters. Don't you worry. There's no shortage of unique personalities and behaviors in the NBA. Let me tell you that right now. But
that's certainly true.
I'll tell you what is unique though is the Thunder are just they're such a young team. The core of our team is under the age of 25. Think about how just I mean that's younger than us. You know what I mean? That's
Oh yeah.
that's unbelievable. And Alex Caruso is the old man on our team, and this dude's 31 or something like that. So
Yeah.
versus the Timberwolves, right? Their starting point guard is a guy named Mike Conley, and he's been in the NBA for God, maybe 20 seasons. He's 37 years old, and he's their starting point guard. So
Dang.
yeah,
Okay.
dude. Freaking, as Nick Saban likes to say, SGA is going to run through him like shit through a tin horn. He is going to crucify Mike Conley if they're not careful. But I am excited because this is our chance. We will not get a greater chance to win a finals than right now. So if we don't capitalize, then that's on us.
Oh yeah, I'm beyond hyped. In fact, I was contemplating going out and buying another OKC Thunder hat. You remember that hat I wore for like an entire year, like
Yes,
every day?
yes, yes.
Oh my gosh, that thing got so dirty. It was like brown on the inside, but like this bright blue hat was like brown on the inside. But oh my gosh, I got to get another. I haven't been this excited about basketball really since the Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and
Yeah, when we were kids, man. We haven't
oh
been.
yeah,
You
back
got to
when
think.
Harden.
We
Yeah.
were in middle school when we were this excited. So the
Oh yeah,
entire
seventh
city's
grade.
excited. You know,
Seventh grade, I went to a game, and then Harden. I think Harden was still there at that point, and Kevin Durant and Westbrook, and that was like a really big deal to get to go to that game.
yeah, no, this is huge. This is huge. So I'm excited, man. Should be fun.